We are used to thinking that reading minds is a superpower from sci-fi movies. We think that to do this, you need to be a psychic, read hundreds of psychology books, or master facial micro-expressions like an FBI agent. But I have news for you. Ancient African communities, from the elders of the Swahili people to the sages of the Zulu tribe, knew a secret that is much simpler and, at the same time, 1,000 times deeper. To read a person's mind, you only need to ask them 5 right questions. In themselves, these questions are merely a key. A key is useless if you do not know how to turn it in the lock. The most important thing is not the 5 questions themselves. The most important thing is knowing how to read the answers to them. If you simply skip this video to the list and write down the questions, you will only hear words. But if you listen to this conversation to the end and understand the philosophy behind each question, you will learn to hear the echo of the soul. You will see right through a person, not because you outsmarted them, but because you learned to look where ordinary people never bother to look. Let us open these doors one by one. Question 1. What scar on your heart still hurts when it rains? Translated into our modern everyday language, this question might sound different. What event from the past still triggers emotions in you when you remember it? Or, what from your past do you still regret? But the metaphor of rain here is not accidental. Rain in African tradition is a time when everything slows down, when people gather under one roof and remain alone with their thoughts. This question hits right into a person's shadow. It forces them to instantly drop from their head down into their heart. If a person answers, "I have no scars, I regret nothing," it is all nonsense. If a person answers you quickly, with a slight smirk, trying to brush it off, "Oh, come on, I do not live in the past at all. Everything is great with me, no scars," it would be a mistake to think that you are sitting across from a harmonious and strong personality. In 90% of cases, this means one of 2 things. Either the person wears such an armored mask that they do not even trust themselves and are terrified of vulnerability, or their pain is so immense and unresolved that they pushed it into the deepest corner of their subconscious. What does this mean for you? Such a person, at the first serious problem in a relationship, will run away, shut down, or show passive aggression. They do not know how to handle pain, neither their own nor yours. If a person swallows this question and begins an hour-long rant about how unfairly former partners, parents, the government, or their boss treated them, where they are always the blameless hero and everyone else is a villain, this person lives in the victim paradigm. They have not learned a lesson from their pain. They made their pain their identity. They like being pitied. The main conclusion: in the future, if your paths diverge or a conflict arises, you will inevitably become the next villain in their story. They will never take responsibility for their mistakes. When answering this question, a wise person will slow down. Their gaze might drift away for a second. They will sigh, and they will tell a story. But pay attention to how they tell it. They might say, "You know, many years ago I lost someone close. A friend betrayed me, or I failed the project of my life. It hurt terribly. I was angry for a long time. But as time passed, I understood what it taught me." Before you is a person who knows how to transform suffering into wisdom. They are not afraid to be vulnerable. They know the price of mistakes. This is a person you can rely on in a storm because they have already weathered their own internal storm and came out of it as a mature adult. Question 2. If you became the chief of the village and had all the gold in the world, what would you change first, and what would you leave untouched? In modern language, this translates as, what will you do when you get unlimited power and resources, and there are no consequences for your actions? The second question reveals hidden appetites and true values. There is an old saying, if you want to know a person, give them power. As long as a person lacks money, connections, or power, they are forced to be polite, follow the rules, and adapt. Their kindness might simply be a consequence of their weakness. But when a person receives power, their mask falls off as unnecessary. Why do we ask this question? This question is a hypothetical experiment. It removes social boundaries from a person. When you ask them about gold and power, their ego begins to fantasize. And in these fantasies, their true core values are revealed. But pay attention to the second part of the question. What would you leave untouched? It is even more important than the first part. If a person enthusiastically starts telling you who they would fire, what they would prove, who they would punish, or how they would rebuild everything for themselves by destroying the old order, it means that deep resentment and a thirst for revenge live inside them. Their driving force is not creation, but compensation for their own insecurities. If you give such a person even a little power over you, they will turn into a tyrant. If a person answers, "I would buy an island, a yacht, a private jet, and never talk to anyone again," a superficial mindset, the person experiences a chronic hunger for safety and recognition. They view the world as a resource that needs to be consumed before it runs out. You can have fun with such a person while times are good, but they will never become your true ally. As soon as the resource runs out, they will vanish. Listen closely to whether they mentioned what they want to preserve. If a person says, "I would build schools or hospitals, but most importantly, I would not touch traditions. I would preserve respect for elders. I would leave people their freedom," it means that this person possesses an internal moral compass. They understand the balance between change and stability. They are not obsessed with destruction. They have a concept of sufficiency. This is a sign of high emotional intelligence and the ability to care for others, not just themselves. Question 3. What does your mind talk about when the fire dies down and you are left alone in the silence of the savannah? In the modern world, this means, what happens to you when you are left completely alone, without a phone, without background noise, without work, and without social media? The third question tests how a person relates to themselves when there are no spectators around. In ancient tribes, the night silence was sacred. When the fire goes out, daily troubles disappear. There is no hunting, no work, no talking. It is just you and your thoughts. In our 21st century, we have created a civilization that is terrified of silence. We put in headphones the moment we leave the house. We fall asleep to TV shows. We scroll through news feeds in elevators, lines, and waiting rooms. Why? Because silence is a mirror. In silence, everything we run away from all day comes to the surface. If a person honestly or accidentally admits, "Oh, I cannot be alone at all. I instantly get bored or anxious. I always have to watch something, listen to something, or text someone," this means that the person is at war with themselves. Their internal home is so uncomfortable, messy, or full of ghosts that they cannot stay there without guests, that is, without external noise. What does this mean for you? A person who cannot tolerate themselves will use you as a patch for their internal void. They will demand your constant attention, emotional service, and presence. They do not love you. They use you, so they do not have to hear their own internal silence. If they answer, I start endlessly overthinking my problems, wondering what I did wrong, replaying old conversations, fearing tomorrow. This shows a high level of anxiety and a tendency to overthink. The person lives either in the past or in a catastrophic future. They are not present in the here and now. If a person smiles and says, "You know, I love those moments. In the silence, I dream," or "I simply feel grateful for the day that passed. Sometimes, I just listen to how the world breathes. I feel good being with myself." This is a sign of deep psychological maturity and emotional health. The person has befriended their demons. They do not need external crutches to feel complete. Only someone who knows how to be happy in solitude is capable of creating a healthy, non-toxic union with another person, because they will be with you out of choice, not out of need. Question 4. For what act would you banish a person from your tribe forever, and for what would you give a second chance? In plain language, what are your firm boundaries? What is an absolute taboo for you, and what are you able to understand and forgive? In tribal culture, banishment from the community was equivalent to a death sentence. It was the most extreme measure. To earn it, one had to commit something so destructive to the group that the tribe could no longer tolerate them. Every person at the beginning of a relationship tries to seem kind, forgiving, and understanding. But boundaries are defined not by kindness. Boundaries are defined by where a person's yes ends and their uncompromising no begins. If a person has no clear boundaries, they are dangerous, and both to themselves and to you. If their boundaries are too harsh, they are a fanatic. If a person answers, "I can forgive everything, I would not banish anyone." If a person tries to play an absolute saint, "Oh, I am very forgiving, I understand everyone, everyone has the right to make a mistake, I would not banish anyone," you should beware of this person. This is either naivety or, more often, a lack of personal backbone. A person without boundaries is incapable of protecting either themselves or you. Today they understand you, and tomorrow they will just as easily understand the person who harmed you. A person who forgives everything actually just fears conflict and lacks their own core values. If a person starts listing minor everyday mistakes or slips of the tongue, if someone lies to me even in a small thing, that is it. I cut them out of my life. If a person arrives late, they are dead to me. I never forgive weakness. This means you are facing a narcissistic and immature personality with black and white thinking. In their world, there is no room for human imperfection. They demand perfection from others that they themselves do not possess. With such a person, you will walk on eggshells forever, afraid of making the slightest wrong step. Listen carefully. A wise person distinguishes between a mistake of weakness and a betrayal of the spirit. They might say, "I will give a second chance" to someone who stumbled out of weakness, made a foolish mistake, gave in to fear, but genuinely regretted it. Everyone makes mistakes. But I will banish someone who committed an intentional betrayal, who consciously weaves plots, acts hypocritically, and destroys trust from within. Because foolishness can be corrected, but a rotten core cannot. This person possesses high discernment. They are generous, but not foolish. They have clear, moral guidelines. You will always know where you stand with them, because their rules of engagement are transparent and honest. Question 5. When your body returns to the earth and your name becomes just the rustle of the wind in the grass, what song should your children sing about you by the fire? In modern terms, what legacy do you want to leave behind? What exactly do you want to be remembered for when you are gone? We have reached the most important question, the question that strips away the last layers of illusion. In modern culture, the topic of death is a taboo. We try not to think about it. We hide elderly people in nursing homes. We cover wrinkles with creams and pretend we will live forever. But for an African philosopher, death is not the end or a nightmare. Death is the ultimate advisor. It is the only anvil upon which the true value of your life is tested. Death resets all small goals. It does not care what car brand you drove, how many followers you had on social media, or what clothes brand you wore. When a person reflects on their final end, their consciousness automatically discards the trivial and leaves only the essence. This question shows what a person is actually spending their most precious and irreplaceable resource on: time. If a person answers, "Oh, come on, why think about that? We are still young. Once I am dead, I do not care what happens," This means the person lives in a state of deep mental immaturity. They are infantile. They drift along, consuming day after day without thinking about the meaning of their existence. They avoid deep topics because those topics trigger existential fear. If a person answers, "I want Wikipedia to write about me. I want a company named after me. I want everyone to know how great and rich I was," this means that the motivation of this person is a monumental ego and a fear of being forgotten. They confuse fame with value. Even when thinking about death, they think only about themselves, not about what they gave to the world. A wise person will not talk about trophies or bank accounts. They will say something like, "I want my children to remember me as an honest person. I want to know that after me, the earth became just a little bit better. That I taught someone, protected someone, left behind a good footprint, a garden, or a book. I want people to feel warmer when they remember me." If you hear an answer like this, before you is a person with eternal thinking. They understand that life is not a sprint for resources, but a relay race. They strive to be a giver, not just a taker. A person who thinks about their legacy will never act basely toward you for short-term gain, because they guard the purity of their song. These 5 questions are not just a collection of interesting topics for an evening chat. They are a coordinate grid of the human soul. When you know the answers to these 5 questions, you no longer need to guess. You read a person's mind not because you guessed a specific number in their head. You read their mind because you have studied the operating system of their personality. Knowing this system, you can predict with up to 90% accuracy. How will they act when tough times arrive? Will they stand by your side or betray you at the first sign of danger? Will they grow together with you or drag you down to the bottom? Do not look for complicated paths. Listen with your heart. Ask the right questions. And remember, words are just noise. The real truth always sounds between the lines. Thank you for walking this path with me today. If this wisdom resonated in your heart, do not forget to share this video with someone whose soul you truly want to understand. And write in the comments, which of these 5 questions resonated with you the most. Until next time, on the Wisdom of the Ages channel,